Jefferson, and welcome to everyone that have joined in. And welcome, Jefferson. Thank you so very much for being here today and for getting interviewed. So the agenda for the interview is simply is that we'll start off and I'll introduce you all to the organization, Chemical Engineering Life, tell you a little bit about what we do and what are our aims and how you can be part of it. Then we'll move on to Mr. Jefferson, and we have a list of questions that we wish to ask him. After that, you all will get a chance to ask him questions, interact with him, and then we'll finish the webinar with the closing remarks. And I will request all of you to be muted and turn off your videos, so just so that we can do the interview, and then of course you all will get a chance to ask questions. Great. And once again, just for everyone to introduce to Mr. Jefferson, he is a chemical engineer who's been working in the process engineering industry for more than 14 years. He's been involved in multiple industrial projects, and he is from Brazil, but he has international experience working in so many different countries. To name a few of the countries that he's been and worked at, that would include Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Peru, China, and among others. Apart from being a successful process engineer, he's also an entrepreneur. He's a teacher. He is a consultant. As a teacher, he has taught chemical engineering principles to, I would say, thousands of students out there. He has a YouTube channel where he shares different chemical engineering videos, different topics, and people can actually sign up for one-on-one teaching as well, if I'm correct, right? And apart from that, like I mentioned, he is a founder of his own consulting company. And through that company, he has been working closely with many different companies and industries. So no doubt he is a very successful and experienced individual. And we are truly honored and grateful that you could join us today on the webinar. Moving on to the organization itself, Chemical Engineering Life, I can tell you a little bit about us, about what we do. The Chemical Engineering Life is an organization that was founded to reduce the gap between industry and the students. It was founded back in February 2021. The main aim of the organization is simply to connect different students, young graduates, with industrial engineers and with the industry, because many of you might agree that once you graduate, especially with a chemical engineering degree, there tends to be a huge ambiguity and a lot of confusion about what exactly it is that you can do. Many people, they try to go and aim for process engineering, which is a given, but many times the people that can't get into that field, they feel that that is all they were good for. But in reality, there are many other ample opportunities for chemical engineers around the globe. And that is the aim of the organization, to bring forth those opportunities, those ideas, and that understanding about what it is that you can do. So we're now coming back to what we do. We have multiple initiatives for the students. We started off by interviewing different chemical engineers, and Mr. Jefferson was actually one of them that took part and answered the questions. So far, we have interviewed around 35 different chemical engineers, and you all are welcome to go to our website and read the interviews. The interview covers multiple engineers working in different countries, in different sectors. We have students, we have industrial engineers, PhD researchers, simply to get an understanding about what it is that they do at their workplace, how they got there, and what are their future aims, just so that you can read about a process engineer and know what exactly is a process engineer, and vice versa. Apart from the interviews, back in September 2021, we launched our very first mentorship program. Our mentorship program is a biannual program that lasts for 5 months. In the very first session, we had around 16 mentees and 21 mentors. The current session that we launched from February, and it's going on up until the end of June 2022, we have around 37 mentees, and so far we have 40 mentors. The mentees and the mentors, they are not limited to one country or one university. Instead, it is a global program. So we have mentors and mentees joining us from India, Pakistan, South Africa, Nigeria, the US, Denmark, Germany, France, Estonia, Indonesia, to name a few of the countries. The mentorship program is a kind of like, it's a free program, and it is an open-ended program. So anyone can join in, and the main focus of the program is the student or the mentee. They are free to ask any question they might want to ask their mentors. Just so you all know, that mentors are industrial engineers, so they know what they're talking about. They've been there. They have walked the same path that you guys are starting on. So you can ask them about chemical engineering. You can ask them about anything about from job search to how to actually make a CV. So it's a very open-ended program. And if you all are very interested, if any of you are interested, then feel free to go to our website and do sign up as a mentee and a mentor. Apart from these two initiatives, we also have a membership area just to create a community type feeling on the website. We recently launched our chemical engineering forum. So you can go out there and ask questions about chemical engineering, and those questions will be answered by other chemical engineers, regardless if they are a member or not of the website. And just as today, so we have a webinar. Feel free to become a member and look out for upcoming webinars as well, where we will be interviewing multiple other chemical engineers, different PhD researchers, just so you all can get a feeling about and interact with those engineers. And lastly, in the coming months, we will be launching our courses and training areas. So it will be the teachers who will be teaching the courses are experienced individuals, also working in the industry as process engineers, safety engineers, health and safety engineers. So you all will get a chance to learn and get a piece of their mind, and also learn from the best who are in their fields. And I believe that that concludes everything I had to say about the organization. And please remember that we are a young organization with only 1 year since our founding. So we are still learning, and we are always open for suggestions about what you would like to be seen in the organization, or what you would like to be done that could help different graduates and students that are out there and need a little bit of guidance. So if you have anything in your mind that you feel that it would be nice to have, or something that you feel that you need help with or so on, then feel free to go to our website and send us the suggestion, and we will reach out to you, and we will love to have that included into the programs. And lastly, thank you all very much for signing up for this webinar, and also for being part of the meeting. Then moving on, Jefferson, would you like to say something about yourself before we start off with the interview? Or
chemical process engineer with expertise in plant design, and responsible for in process booster training program. But I don't want to give so much spoilers to them.
Exactly. Okay, great. Then we'll keep the cards to ourselves. Then moving on to the interview. And I have a few questions that I would like to ask you, Mr. Jefferson. Firstly, we all know that you are a successful chemical engineer today. You've been in there for 14 years. It's a long time, and you know everything about the industry in and out. But what we would like to ask you is that what actually motivated you to go into chemical engineering in the first place?
It's a good question, because I arrived at the chemical engineering. It was a suggestion of my father. He was at the time a CAD designer, a piping designer, in fact, and he had in touch with the industry, the process industry, and I was not aware about that. So I left Rio de Janeiro and I went to live in São Paulo to study agriculture. I was supposed to be a technical in agriculture, take about food and etc. But he suggests me to do an exam here in Brazil. We have two kinds of institutions. The public institutions that we need to do exam to study for free, and we have a particular institution where we pay high fees to have a degree. So I study and I passed in a university, a public university, and I started doing chemical engineering. It was not my dream at the first sight, but the only thing that I know is I will finish the course even though I don't like it. And once I finish, I will verify what I will do with my life. For my lucky, during the years, I get familiar, and my first job was very, very nice with me, and I am passionate. I fall in love with chemical engineering and plant design.
Okay, amazing. That's an amazing story. But like in Brazil, like you mentioned about the courses. So is it like you went for the bachelor program, if I understood that correctly, or was like a special program that you were applying for?
Yeah, here we have after the high school, we have the bachelor. To
Mm-hmm.
be an engineer in Brazil, we have just one level of study, is the bachelor. So we need to expend 5 years of study. There is no short courses for engineering. And after the bachelor, you can go to postgraduating, like specialization, master, and etc.
Okay, amazing. But you know, because like you mentioned about that you were going to go in for the agriculture sector first, and then you opted out for chemical engineering. But and we're all happy, very happy that it all worked out for you, and you ended up getting the job that you like. But if I was to ask you today about people that are thinking about joining chemical engineer, what are the actual opportunities there are for chemical engineers in Brazil after they graduate?
That is a hard question because the chances of chemical engineering in the country depends on the economics. If the economy is increasing, you will have more opportunity. If the economy is decreasing, you have less opportunity because taking into account that I work with plant design, the plant design is the first thing that any company will stop when there is a crisis. And right now we are finishing a period of crisis in Brazil. So it's hard to respond because what I will respond to you today eventually will not represent what will happen 5 years later, because as a surfer, you see the waves forming much behind than when you see the waves, right, in the beach or in the sea. So what I can say is for the chemical engineer is needed for the society. And you have many options of career when you have an engineering degree. And it doesn't matter if it's chemical or not. So if you like mathematics and if you like science, can be a good career path for you. Chemical engineering is not about chemistry; it's about engineering. Okay. So sorry if I didn't give you a more straight questions, but you need to evaluate the market or what you like to do.
Perfect. And that's a very good point you made, that chemical engineering is not chemistry. So that is very much correct. But coming back to what you just said about chemical engineers, it all comes down to the economy of the country and the crisis situation, of course. But if I was to ask you this other question from a very different perspective, like if you were to compare chemical engineering, and now I know that you said that regardless what line you choose, engineering is itself a very good degree, but if you were to compare chemical engineering with source of, like, for example, let's say petroleum engineers, or something like, you know, agricultural engineer, like you mentioned, or something that called industrial engineer, would you agree in saying that chemical engineering is of course far more stable when it comes to those career lines, because they are much more affected by economics as chemical engineers?
That is a good question, Hans. I believe that the most stable engineering are mechanical and electrical. And I will say you why I think about that. Because they work with maintenance. And you can start a plant, you can get in operations, and you can have one chemical engineer to verify all the process and look for optimization. But you will always have equipment's broken, you always need to do maintenance, electrical, the same thing. So in terms of stability, eventually, if I would choose another engineer in the past years, I would be a mechanical engineer. Because a mechanical engineer, if it's the nearest person to the chemical engineering, because we are talking about process, and process are related or correlated with equipments. The petroleum engineer, comparing to the chemical, I believe that they are more sensitive for the fluctuation in oil and gas industry. And the agriculture engineer, I don't know, I cannot say anything about that. But if your questions was, would you choose another engineering in your initial of your career? I would say that maybe mechanical, because I would have the options to work with design, that is what I work today, but there are the options for maintenance, and any industrial process needs maintenance.
Exactly.
And of course, that work, you are 24 hours available for the company. There are bonus and cons, right?
Okay, amazing, great. Thank you. And I also fully agree with what you just said about mechanical engineers and electrical engineers being the most stable careers, because I mean, they are one of the oldest, you could say, engineering projects as well, and they found their roots in almost literally everything that we do in the real world. So that is a very good point. Thank you. But then moving on to what you have actually been working with as a chemical engineer. So to begin with, what sectors have you been involved in since you graduated?
I have been involved in the petrochemical sector, in the air separation, the industrial gas sector, and now I am in the energy sector. Yes.
That's kind of a huge jump, you could say, from the petroleum sector and then moving on to the energy sector. Was it difficult, or did you feel that you could just transfer the skills that you had from one place to another?
Every time that you change from a sector to another, you have things to learn. But my expertise, and I am very proud of that, is that I never changed what I do in the core business, that is chemical process engineering plant design. So my first job was in Braskem. It was a polypropylene plant. It was a revamp, and I started learning about the working flow of a project. PNID, process flow diagram, heat material balance, specification, and etc. I spent around 3 years there, and I went to Praxair, that now is Linde. So it was industrial gas separation industry, and I worked there with hydrogen, CO2 liquefaction, nitrogen, argon in oxygen production, and also there was another one that I forget, VPSA. So although it was different process or products, the core was the same, doing projects. So once you know how to do a project for one, you know to everyone. And now I am working in the energy sector with biogas production for energy or biomethane production. So in fact, my basis allow me to work in any industry that needs to do plant design.
Okay, amazing. And how would you describe a typical day of work for a process engineer at your workplace? Like if you were to say what you do, or a typical work day from 8 a.m. till 16.
A typical day for my job is starting reviewing emails, because you may not believe, but what you do less in your career is calculation. Who does the calculations in the computer? You need to solve problems. And to solve problems, you need to get familiar with the problem. So there are emails. I have a lot of meetings with the team, meetings with my boss, meetings with the customer, to identify their needs, meeting with the business, because right now I work with plant design, but I support business in the development of new solutions for the clients. And I get in touch with the vendors to verify the best technologies to be applied in every project. And I still do the deliverables for plant design. So based on that, once I understand the problem, I need to verify which kind of deliverable I need to issue, like pipe instrumentation diagram, heating material balance, specification data sheets. And this is the day that you will have as a chemical process engineer working with plan design. Summarizing, verifying emails, meetings, and doing deliverables, not necessarily doing calculations. And eventually you will use the process simulation software to do heating material balance.
Okay, amazing. And the calculations that you mentioned is, could you say what sort of calculations that you are working with? Is it like you mentioned that there are simulations programs to do the heat and energy balances? Could you tell a little bit more about that in terms of what topics? Let me rephrase the question. Like, what topics do you actually use that very much at the workplace when it comes to process design or process designing and so on?
The most used topics from the chemical engineering are heat transfer, because we always need to heat or cool something in the process. We have the rotating equipment, so compressors and pumps. We deal a lot with this kind of equipment because we need to build pressure in many cases to transfer the fluid from a point to another. And because of that, we have the fluid dynamics. It's very important to know how to do the calculation for pressure drop, velocity in the pipelines, how to do the estimation of the best size of a pipe. So the main activities in terms of chemical engineering knowledge are these three ones. And of course that you need thermodynamics to know what is happening, and you need to be familiar with heating material balance also. So I believe no matter what industry you are, if you are in hydrogen plants or CO2 liquefaction, you always need at least these three ones: rotating equipment, piping fluid dynamics or piping system, and heating exchanger. Distillation depends on if you have distillation or not. There are process that needs, there are process that doesn't need that. Reactors, sometimes you have, sometimes you don't, but these three ones you always have.
Okay, amazing. But like you mentioned, like the question that I'm actually quite curious about is because as a student, when we are doing these calculations in class or for assignments, there tends to be a lot of assumptions when you work with them. You know, like for example, you do them and then you can always play around with the numbers and so on. Do you like, is it the same level of accuracy when you're working in the industry, or is it the same level of assumptions that you move on? And to follow up with that, how can students actually start preparing themselves to be able to do these calculations in a real life scenario?
The first thing that you must understand is that you will not receive all the informations at your hand. If the project or if the talking with the customer starts okay, you will have the requirements for the product, and you need to know, you need to verify which kind of process are able to produce that, and you have information about the raw material. So between the raw material and the product, you design or we select the process. But the process depends on not only of the characteristics of the fluids, but also the environment. So if I'm doing a project in Brazil that the minimum temperature is 15 Celsius degree, it's different than doing in Denmark, because we can reach minus 18 Celsius degree there. So although the equipments can be the same, the materials that I will choose will be different. And that is one of the reasons that we study chemical process engineering, to be able to design the process, but also to select the materials and understand. Here in Brazil, for instance, I work with biogas production, and it is produced at saturated conditions in the well. So I suctionate that to my blower. So I have a negative pressure, and as it is saturated, we have water as 100% relative humidity. When I operating during the day, the temperature is high, so the chances of condensate water is minimal. But when we have the nights, the water condensates. So I need to be able to predict, verify the scenarios, what happens when it's morning, what happens when it's afternoon, night, to size the equipment accordingly. So that's your boss will not give you. You have 100 meters of pipe. You have 2 curves. You need to add a check valve. It's not the way that it happens. You have the product. You have the raw material. Look for the best technology to be applied and suggest what must be done.
Okay, that sounds like a lot of challenges that when you are working out there with not getting all the information in hand, but then you just got to be creative yourself in gathering the data and applying your knowledge skill. But then coming back to, like, let's say if you are a student who's just about to graduate, how do you think that they should start preparing themselves to be working in the industry? Because of course, the best way to get to prepare yourself is to get internships or work in the industry, but not everyone is that lucky. Not many end up getting an internship or that sort of thing. So coming from a different path, how do you feel that they can start preparing themselves, like writing projects or doing some courses, or anything on that?
That's a nice question, Hansa. When I was finishing my graduation, the event of internet was not what we have today. So it was much harder to find information. I need to go to the books, and in Brazil we talk Portuguese, so most of the literature related to chemical process engineering you have in English. So I have 2 barriers: not access to books, and the internet was not well developed. Today, in my point of view, there are no excuses to learn as much as possible to career that wants to follow in the future. First, what I recommend the students is verify what are the main fields of expertise of a chemical process engineer, or for a chemical engineer. For instance, you can work with research and development, you can work with plant design, you can work with operations, you can work with process safety, and you can work with quality. Just to mention some of them. There are other fields that you can get specialized. Once you identify them, you can use the internet to have more information about them, because each specialization, each field of expertise will require from you a set of skills that not necessarily will be valuable or seen with good eyes or as a differential in the other sectors. For instance, you have a PhD in the research and development industry. Makes sense, because most of the guys that works with research and development, they dedicate their lives for study. For plant design, if you have a PhD, sometimes it will works against you if you are talking about a company that most of the professionals don't have master, because we don't need to have master. You can do okay, but it's not mandatory. So use the internet. First thing, Google. To get more familiar with topics, use YouTube. For instance, if you want to know more about chemical process engineering, plant design, you have my YouTube channel, Jeferson Costa, process engineer. I'm not aware of so much content related to chemical process engineering, plant design as my YouTube. You have chemical engineering YouTubes, but they have variated content, since heat material balance up to plant design. In my YouTube, it's straight to plant design. And you need to get in touch with books and use LinkedIn. My suggestion to people is use LinkedIn, because you will be familiar or you'll get in touch with people that produce content and are already seniors. You will see job descriptions, you will see to work in something, as much familiar you are, I believe it's better.
Okay, Perfect. Thank you so very much. Those are some very nice suggestions that I feel and I agree. They are quite helpful. But you mentioned your YouTube channel where you have your videos online, and so anyone can go out there and they can watch those YouTube videos, right? They don't have to sign up externally for extra courses or some other.
To get familiar with, you can use my YouTube to get familiar. But for instance, I want to learn about high-span high Cs applied to plan design. My YouTube, I share some content related to that, but that is not organized in a way that you can say, oh, I will see this sequence and of videos and I will get, I will master that. It's not the way that it works. I have many insights about chemical process engineering plan design. I let available for free in my YouTube channel, but to have a step-by-step with support, you need to join my Process Booster training program because I dedicate my time to support students. On the internet, as the time passes on, I have less time to dedicate my time for people that is not my students because I have a job, I produce free content, I have a training program, and I have a family. So you can imagine that I don't have too much free time.
Exactly. And that was actually about to be my next question, because how do you find time for all this stuff? Like, making the YouTube videos, but then also doing one-on-one coaching and also having a full-time job. And then, of course, you have your family. And I understand you also have your own consulting firm. How difficult is it to manage everything that's going around you?
That is because I have a strong objective. I went to, I will do just one steps back. Around 2017, I was in the Praxair. I was not happy with my career. And because of the economic crisis in Brazil, I was fired. And 6 months, I thought about giving up from chemical engineering. I almost became a lawyer. Who know my story are more familiar about that. But 6 months later, my ex-boss, the same one, asked me to go to China to work to support the Shanghai office there. So I stopped to study to be a lawyer, went to China, and there I was alone around 3 months there. And I evaluated how could I increase my employability in order to not lose, or in order that instead of looking for job look for me. So that's born the idea of sharing my expertise on internet, because one of the things that I share with my students is that the technical part is important, but is not the technical part that will decide if you will be successful or not. You need to take care of your inner self, your beliefs, your thoughts, what your behaviors, and you need to take care of the social skills or the external skills. One of the things that I would like to have done during my graduation was oratory, for instance, and negotiation, because you need to deal with people to get the results. Or if I apply to a job, I need to convince the interviewer that I am the best option. How you do that? It's not with your resume, because as you have thousands of students also has the same resume. So you need to build connection with the interviewer, and very few people in engineering understand that during the graduation. So if I can give you a tip while you still are in the graduation, is invest on social skills, oratory and negotiation at a minimum. And I, of course, as I want to sell my products, I want to sell my service, I need also to get in touch with marketing. So that is something I was always refreshing my mind to be more familiar and get more skilled on that.
Oh, that's amazing. And I might just add on to that, your videos, they are, I would say, not just educational, but they're also very inspirational to many of the people that are out there. because like you mentioned very rightly, that there isn't that much material for chemical engineering or process designing or the simulation programs. So you doing that on your own free time to simply help different graduates or students out there, because I have been through your videos myself, and many times I have taken a lot of guidance from that. So I would like to say thank you to you, especially for again making time and also for creating those videos, because they make a huge difference for students out there, for people that might need a little bit of guidance, a little bit of help, people that are getting stuck. But then you are like the knight on in the shining armor for them. So thank you so very much for that. And the people in the audience, if they have not done so already, then I would strongly suggest that they go to YouTube and they search for Jeferson Costa and subscribe to his channel and watch all his videos. And if they want to sign up for the courses for one-on-one coaching, do they have to go to the website, or do they just contact you on LinkedIn?
In fact, I don't have I have a mentoring program. It is the Process Booster training program. Today is the last day to join the new batch that I have here. But my program, as we have here, I have students from all over of the world, from Nigeria to South America, to Australia, to Canada, from Italy to Colombia. So what I do in my training program, it is focused on teaching the students on how to use the expeience to do the plan design and all the documentation associated with that. But I do recorded videos in order that anyone that is my students can watch it anytime or from anywhere. And eventually, depending on my schedule, in my workload in the job, I let available some seats for one-on-one meeting. So I don't get one person and teach him one by one. I have everything recorded, and I clarify all questions not related to chemicals engineering, but also career in online meetings. So I proceed this way because I believe that it's not. It's too hard to handle too many people from all of the world at the same time. So that's the way that I found to help them. And you said you asked me about how I handle that. We found this objective very clear to me, that I should be known by my expertise, and job would ask people should offer me jobs, then I will ask them for job. I would not have the strength to do what I do in the internet because it's hard. Before that, I expanded to a lot of hours playing video game, a lot of hours watching anime. That is two things that I really love. But now I needed to reduce my time with that. And my luck is I am passionate for chemical process engineering plan design. So when I doing a project, I don't have time to stop. Only when my wife, stop that, because if you don't stop that, you will have trouble. So that's why I am able to share so much content on the internet.
Well, that's amazing. And I fully agree that you got to create your own value, so the employers come for you instead of you having to go to the employers and so on. So it is quite remarkable. And I really like your philosophy about how you want to better yourself and at the same time also lift the people around you. So, it's a win-win situation for everyone, I guess. But then the question that I want to ask you is that, like you mentioned, that you got fired back in 2017 and then you moved to this sector, but you have been working in Brazil throughout your career. Have you ever thought about moving to a different country, or to US or Canada or Europe or any other area instead of just working in Brazil?
That's an interesting question, because when we are when we don't live in US or in Europe, I believe that we always have the dream of going to these countries because we imagine that there are a better life there. Okay, I cannot confirm because I never worked on US in Europe. I never did action to work on US or in Europe. I would like to work in these countries or live in these countries, but now, as I told you, I am more, if I receive an invitation, most probably I would consider that. But today, I'm not doing any action to let that come true. So I would like, but it's not my priority right now. But if you are engineering manager and you would like to have me in your team in Europe or in the US, please invite me. That will be very nice to work with you.
Perfect, great. Because now, you know, in many of these countries, because now we talked about Europe and the US, especially in Europe, for example, many industries, they are kind of moving towards something they are calling Industry 4.0, where even though you have a chemical engineering degree, they still require you to have knowledge in data processing and Python and R and SQL and programming, basically. So kind of like you becoming computer scientist as well while you're working as a process engineer. And I believe the same wave is coming in the US as well, where the industries are moving on. Is it the same situation in Brazil, or is it still that they are still happy, or there are still opportunities for people with a chemical engineering degree and not necessarily all this Python and programming knowledge to top it up?
That's a good question, because I was never a programmer, and I don't expect to be a programmer in my career. As I work with chemical process engineering and design, I don't see these skills as mandatory and as needed for our job, because something that's interesting to mention, in plant design, we don't create anything. What I mean by that? I know that I need to have biomethane, and I need to use biogas to reach that. And in the industry, there are 3 or 4 technologies that are able to do that. So what I do as a chemical process engineer, if I am in the vendor, I develop the technology, the scrubber, the pumps, the heat exchangers, etc., and say to the market, I have a technology that are able to purify biogas to biomethane. And you don't need Python, you don't need nothing, anything like that. You need a process simulation software to let your life easier, more, do the heat material balance faster, and you need to do the sizing of the equipment. And in the other hand, if I am the customer, as a chemical process engineer, I need to identify these technologies and know which kind of deliverable are very important to have. So I am not able to build a plant without a pipe instrumentation diagram, I am not able to buy a pump, the correct pump, without the technical specification or the process data sheet. So anything, as I don't work in a software company, I don't need Python to do that. I need to have the how to criticize the engineering deliverables and what are the engineering deliverables to have the plant erected. So when you say to me that the engineers are becoming data scientists, in my point of view, okay, it is more associated when you work with operations. Why I say that? Because operations, you have a lot of data available. In design, you don't have a lot of data. You have the design conditions, most often, one point of view to design your whole plant. But in operations, when you add a pump that the head is 20 meters column of water, in real life, it will operates in 15, 25, and you need to verify how to improve the process. So as many information you have, easier will be to you make a decision. So in that case, you will verify data, you will classify them, you will verify what makes sense or not. But for plant design in itself, I don't see many uses. Eventually, for big companies, you have a department dedicated to that. But if you, in my point of view, if you are a data scientist, you will not design a pump, or you will not select a pump, or you will not size a vessel. So you need to decide what is best for you. Of course, that there are pros and cons. I prefer to keep in the design part and not in the data analysis part.
Okay, amazing. That clears up a lot of questions, but I believe it cleared a lot of things for the audience as well. And that actually concludes all of the questions that we had for the meeting due to the time, even though we would love to ask you even more questions, but now I think it's time. If anyone in the audience would like to ask you any questions, then they can feel free to go ahead and you can unmute and ask the question if anyone might have any.
Or if you want to add in the chat also.
Oh, exactly. Yes.
While people is not typing, this kind of initiative you are doing, I think that's very nice, because you close the student with professionals. And in my time also, I didn't have a mentor outside the industry. Of course, that when you have someone to guide you, to share information with you related to the job that you want to, the life gets much easier, because you find the shortcuts. Instead of doing that, if you want to work with research and development, the person will tell to you what are needed specific for that career. In general, as I have seen with the students around the world, the chemical engineering courses let you be a generalist. You know about everything, but you don't know how to do anything. And when you need to get a job, the company are not there to give you a chance. They are there to select the candidate that will give it to them the best results. So that's why as much persons graduate in chemical engineering, more specialized, more knowledge, and more skilled in terms of social skills and internal skills you need to be, my point of view.
Okay, yeah, I fully agree. I 100% agree that it all comes down to you being kind of being forward in gaining that skill. And many times it's not the technical skills that companies want, but it's actually the social skills. Because I was something that I was told when I was graduating was that anyone can learn technical skills, anyone can be a technical person, anyone can do the calculations, but it is how you handle those calculations and how you express them or deal with them with your colleagues and your boss and your coworkers. That is what makes you stand out in a company or in a team, or also as a student. So I fully agree that is a very strong and a very effective suggestion for many of the future graduates. But I guess if no one has any questions, then I have a question, the final question that I want to ask you. So what are your future plans now? What do you plan yourself doing in the coming years as a process engineer, or just as a person? Do you see yourself continuing in process engineering, or becoming independent, not having to work for an employer, or what are your plans?
My plan is to keep in work with chemical process engineering and design. In the company that I am right now, I am very happy, because now I am getting in touch not only with the technical part, but also with business, and eventually with operations management of industrial plants. So eventually, if I am allowed, I will be much more years in this company. I like to be as much as possible in the same company. And I investing most of my time, free time, in my process booster training program, because my dream, or not my dream, is my objective. So I have a target, a date to achieve that, is to have a course, first accessible course. Most of the course that you find in the internet is thousands of dollars. As students, we don't have thousands of dollars to expend in courses. even though as engineers, we don't have it also, especially if we are in South America and in some places in Asia, Africa, you don't have that. So that's my objective, to have a platform where the students can learn chemical process engineering and plant design as if they were in a design company. My program has only 2 years of existence. I have a lot to build on that, to work on that for sure. But in a few years, in 2, maybe 3 years, I want to have everything prepared to that. And you will enter as you from scratch, and you will you get all the information. When you have an interview, you know all the steps of plant design and all the deliverables that must be issued, and how to issue, to how to develop the deliverables. That is my main target in the 5-10 years ahead. And I don't think of stopping working right now, because I really, really love what I do.
Okay, amazing. Because that is the most important thing, loving what you do, waking up and knowing that you're making a difference, or you are moving closer to your objective that you have set for yourself. So, you know, it is very commendable. And I have said it before, I have said it again in the webinar, and I'll say it again, that, you know, you are making a huge difference. And the way you're thinking about it, it does makes a huge difference for many students out there, because rightfully, like you said, people don't have thousands of dollars to spend on these courses, and you know that is a barrier between and it is a bummer that people cannot get an opportunity to learn, simply because they can't pay the very high prices these courses have been set at. So, you know, it is amazing that you have found it and you're working towards it, and it truly means a lot for everyone. But you have been working in process engineering throughout your career. Like, you never thought about moving into the management area or more into the business area of these companies. Is there a reason you've been the technical person throughout, or do you just love process engineering?
That's a good question, because when you proceed in your career as technical, eventually there will be a time when you need to decide, or you will be people will ask you to decide if you want to go to management or keeping as a technical. The good part of being a technical, and that's I like a lot, most of my results depends on me. I have the deliverables that I must issue, and I develop the engineering deliverables, and I issue them. Of course, that there is no project without interface with other disciplines and internal, external clients or customers. When you go to business, now you need your level of social skills must be in another patamar, because in another level, because now you will deal with people. It's not about numbers, it's about people. To have an engaged team, you need to know how to deal with people. To close contracts, you need to know how to deal with people, and that means another level of interactions that I never thought about going this way. But eventually, in the few years, in the company that I am, it's a medium to a small company, so it's easier to walk in all the departments that we have here, including business and plant operations, for instance. So who knows, eventually, if I get the invitation, I will verify, but it's not something that I'm looking for, not now.
Okay, amazing. Okay, and I fully agree. That's very rightfully said, that to be in business, that is with people. As a technical person, it is all numbers, and engineers, they love numbers. You know, you control where the plus goes, you control where the minus goes, and the numbers. So it is very rightfully said. Then I guess we are coming to the end of the webinar, and to end everything, thank you so very much. We are truly honored and truly grateful to you for making time to be here today with us, and for answering our questions, and for sharing your knowledge. It truly means a lot, and I hope everyone in the audience, they got the best out of what you said, and truly got a lot more information about what what exactly does a process engineer does, and what are the career aspects, prospects for an engineer out there. So thank you so very much once again. And we wish you best of luck for creating your platform, and we're very much looking forward to seeing your next videos and your next programs. And everyone in the audience, if they have not done so already, please go to YouTube and do sign up and do connect with Jeferson on LinkedIn as well, so that you can stay updated on his programs and his upcoming initiatives. Is there anything you would like to say before we log off, Jeferson?
Yes, Hansa, first, you can count on me in any project that you have, okay? If you need any support or presentation for the Chemical Engineering Life platform, please just ask to me, just talk to me. Guys, if you want to know more about chemical process engineering plant design, just type jeffersoncosta.com and you will find my website where you have the links for my LinkedIn, my YouTube, my Telegram, my Instagram, and there it's the word that you will be able to get in touch with me. It was a pleasure to be here. And if you have any questions, find my social media and send me a question, and I will answer you as soon as possible. When I have a question from a non-student, I try to respond that in a collective way. So send me your questions, and eventually I will record an audio, a video, and let available to as much people as possible. Hansa, thanks a lot. It was a great Saturday evening.
Great.
Sorry. It was a great Saturday morning here in Brazil with you.
Perfect. Thank you so very much. And everyone, if they have not done so already, please go to our website as well and become a member and look out for the upcoming webinars as well. And I hope you have a great Saturday, Jeferson. And thank you once again for your time, and have a lovely weekend. And maybe we'll meet again some other time. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice weekend, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.